Hello again, everyone. Once again, I'm Samantha and I'm here with Laura, and we both are Streams of Grace. This video, we are going to specifically talk about all the quote unquote boring stuff that goes into creating a partnership. So, Laura and I both have separate businesses, technically, but we formed this partnership of Streams of Grace specifically to share a website, to share resources, and just to kind of move forward together in this path of Streams of Grace evolving and changing a little bit. So we're going to talk about all the nitty gritty today, the step-by-step things that we did. And I think we'll start off with just talking about how we met each other, which is I found Laura on the SDI website. It still blows my mind a little bit that you are one of the profiles I clicked on. I ended up calling 3 people that day. I talked to a couple of them, and once I spoke to Laura, I just knew she was my girl. And so we then spent the next 4 years in a spiritual directee relationship. Within that time, I know we've talked about this very briefly, but within that time, I also received my own training to be able to be a spiritual director. And in, oh gosh, what, 3-4 months ago, we had a very random conversation in the middle of one of our direction sessions. And do you want to talk about that a little bit, Laura, real quick? How did we get here?
Yeah. So friends, we spoke on one of these other videos about how it's been about 3 years. I've been wondering who is going to take this organization, Streams of Grace Spiritual Direction, into her next era. You know, this idea when you're an entrepreneur, a soulpreneur, it's kind of hard to not over-identify with your organization. Like you are one, and I've been doing a lot of learning. You're not, and that the organization has her own soul, and that's been so consoling to me. And so I'm like, well, what do you want? You know, trying to encourage and nurture this organization beyond what I've done with her. And so having conversations with a couple other folks lightly. And then this conversation with Samantha, it was in February. And we're recording this nearly August.
I'm trying to
So
do math in my head.
it's been a few months in coming.
Yeah.
And really, frankly, right? So as spiritual director, listening to your lament on the call that day, your desire for partnership, and you know, right, so as spiritual director, it's like, oh, you know what, the empathy we have for our clients. And then I'm just sensing the spirit saying, are you listening here? Are you listening with that other hat of yours, you know, as entrepreneur looking for a partner? I'm like, oh, you know, I feel like I'm always the last to know things. And so that's when I did can we have a timeout on this call?
Yeah.
And let me tell you what's going on with me, because you don't normally do that as a spiritual director. And you were amazing. You're like, wow, I didn't hear that coming. And then, of course, like every good director, you said, well, I need to discern what the heck we're talking about here. And I mean, I think it was a whole 2 days later, you texted me saying, I think we have something to talk about. And I was just, yay. So that's where it began this conversation.
And we've been talking ever since. And so we definitely spent our time discerning all of that good stuff. And then we realized we wanted to move forward with what we're going to just call a partnership. And as Laura and I both know, I also have a background in being an entrepreneur. My husband is one. I've had my own businesses. You know, once you start receiving money from people, the government cares about you. And so Laura and I both knew that if we were going to move forward, we needed to get our ducks in a row. And what that looked like was having conversations about what we wanted our relationship to look like. Neither of us wanted to be an employee of one or the other. That just opens a whole other can of worms that we are just not willing to deal with. We live in separate states. That can complicate things a little bit. So we decided to create, Laura already had her own. I created my own separate LLC. That way we could keep the line of money, you know, like very clear and simple and easy for both of us. But then we also were like, well, we're doing this together. Like, we're going to be sharing things. We're going to be having referrals now. And so what are the pieces of paper we need to sign so that we're on the same page? We trust each other. There's no second guessing what's going on. And I think that's really important because I'm not going to speak for Laura, but I know for me, like money's not my favorite topic. But I also did not want money to make things weird between us. And so you got to just have some really honest, awkward conversations and get it over with. And then you can move forward and you don't got to worry about it anymore. So if there's anything I could encourage anyone watching this video,
Yeah.
if you're going to go into anything like this, just have very honest conversations about money. How is money being transferred between everyone? How are you handling that? Get it on paper, and then you can move forward. Like there's no weird tension between Laura and I now because it's all taken care of.
Yeah.
And we don't have anything weird to worry about.
And I really want to give credit to you, Samantha, you and your husband having this is kind of your background is working in partnerships and your guidance here. And I love that, right? As I'm the one that's been here for a while and you come along saying, well, I can help guide this thing. And I just feel so nurtured and supported, if you will, by the universe through your knowledge. And amen, 100% the trust. If you don't have that, you got nothing. And so, yeah, having this relationship for the 4 years, a great foundation. At the same time, you wisely said our first conversation out of the gate, we can no longer have the directee director relationship. Like, well, that's right. And so we often learn about that, right, in training of dual relationships. And this is one of those we needed to release. And so, you know, that's been hard for me, but I'm sure for you in a different way as well.
It was, yes, it was hard. I was honestly legitimately sad for a little bit of time. I was never like resentful or angry or why did you do this, you know, but I was sad because it was a huge, and still is a huge relationship in my life, but it just changed.
Yes.
And so I grieved a little bit and I'm glad I did because it was necessary. And now we've transitioned into this mentoring relationship, and that's amazing. And I'm so glad I have it. And I found another spiritual director, and she's amazing. And so, you know, it all worked out, and I'm not upset. But it was very hard. Yeah, it was really hard.
It's so important to allow yourself to feel your feelings. I mean, we know this, and then when it's happening to us, like, oh yeah, that thing I help encourage others in, it applies to me too.
Yes.
And so just the gift that helps us to be all the more empathic for others as well.
Yeah.
So
yeah, I agree. So we did all that hard emotional stuff. And then we kind of set up a cadence of like every 2 to 3 weeks getting together and having just kind of like a business meeting. And I think that was really important for us as people to have that space. Because we really did want to tread forward in a very intentional, I would say, way, right? Like we wanted to make sure that this was good for everyone, including ourselves. And that space in between our business meetings allowed us to kind of sit with the decisions we were making. There was no rushing. And also we were very intentional about moving forward. And so that was an important aspect for me. I don't know how you feel about that, Laura.
Yeah, so definitely, right? So we talked about the slow work of God, and when we meet with clients in spiritual direction, that's typically once a month. And so you and I, in the beginning, was every couple weeks, and then 3 weeks, and then 4, and then of course summer gets busy with other activities. And what I love about our rhythm is I would be thinking, oh, when's our next meeting? Oh, indeed, it's coming up next week. Oh, I think I'll start preparing now.
Yes.
The preparation's been happening, but now it's kind of naming it and claiming it. And okay, so this is the date. So always, and we have we constantly had all of our interview conversations scheduled in advance. And I remember saying to you, okay, I'm prioritizing this. I'm not going to say, hey, can I change it for something else? And so it's a learning process. And again, I mean, you're bringing all of this wealth of your background. You have been mentoring me as well. And so I just love that kind of this intergenerational experience that it's necessary as we talk about helping this organization go to her next season. And you hear about it, but to actually get to experience it has been a great blessing.
Yeah, Laura has also been super open to what I bring to the table, which
Mm.
has been such a gift. Um, After knowing her for 4 years, I kind of I didn't question that a little bit, but I definitely have been in situations where I've gone into a new job or a new learning environment, whatever, and I was much younger than everyone else. And there's a certain level of like expected authority there, which I can totally get behind, but like, I've been around the block half a time at this point. And so, there are things I have experienced, and it's been really fun for me to be able to show up in that capacity and be
Mm.
confident in what I know too, and like how I can
Mm.
contribute to our partnership. And so that's been a really amazing experience for me too. So thank you for being open.
Yeah.
um, and once again, at the foundation, our communication,
Mm.
right? We wouldn't be able to move forward with who we are and our skills if we didn't communicate about it,
Mm.
right? Like Laura and I are on the same page. And I think for any partnership, that's just incredibly important. And we agree on, whose job it is to get certain things done. And we talk briefly, in between our meetings if we need to, but we also give each other space. Like our communication really is on point. And,
Mm.
we've had 4 years practice.
Indeed.
So, not to, I know communication can be really hard. And
Mm.
I'm thankful that's not a thing that we've had to deal with yet. So, yeah.
Indeed.
So, Laura, other than the very specific things, like we have a referral agreement, we have a website agreement,
Mhm.
we know what our weekly and monthly meeting cadence is, we kind of have a plan moving forward for the most part. Um, what is it logistically that I'm missing that really sticks out to you? Or what do you hope comes from us talking about this?
Yeah, definitely. My hope is if anyone listening today is considering some kind of shift in their work experience, especially if they're saying, I'm isolated, I'm lonely, which is so common actually among spiritual directors. We are isolated, and since COVID, working from home more and more, and not going to a space outside of that. And so, if you're thinking about it, I just want to say, consider it. This is a legit thing, to find ways to collaborate with others, and perhaps unlike other organizations of collections of spiritual directors. There's no gatekeeper here. A person can land on our website, they find their way there, they can connect with either of us. And then, really going forward, Samantha, you'll be offering spiritual direction to those finding it there. And I will no longer be doing that. So there's a shift of our focus.
Mhm.
Mine is more toward helping other directors start their business, find their niche, the very thing we're kind of talking about in this interview as well, the thing I'm moving into with my volunteer work on the side. And so, if you are curious, our beloved listener, click on these links to find out more of how we can support you. There's a lot of great articles that are also part of our website, a lot of wonderful links. There is support out there. And I think, the thing I tell people, my students of my class about starting a business, is keep going, keep persevering. This very thing is the way God continues to stretch us.
Mhm.
We might think it's all about business, and I think that is but the platform through which we are continually formed.
Yeah, I agree with Laura. I mean, our hope is that we give people permission to think that this is possible
Mm.
because we're doing it and we're happy. And we're so pleased with the decisions that, everything that's coming about from these choices we've made. And so we
Mm.
just want people to know that it's possible and it can be really good. And it's also okay if you don't do this. You don't have to, but it is possible and it can be really good. So, once again, Laura, thank you for all of your knowledge and your experience and everything you bring to our conversations. Thank you for being here with us today. We will have at least one or two more videos, I think, coming out. The next one, we're going to directly talk about the shift from us being director and directee. and dive into that a little bit more. So we hope you join us for that. Check out the other videos that we've already recorded and made and put out there on the YouTubes and all the socials. And yeah, I guess we'll see you guys again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.